Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's annual State of Our Air briefing and press conference. We've been doing these for about 15 years or so. It's our attempt to get information about air quality conditions, trends, and programs out to the public through the media, and I want to thank all the media representatives for being here today. I'm Bill Laker. I'm with the Land to Sky Regional Council, and I serve as the coordinator of our regional clean air campaign and also the coordinator of our Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition. I'd like to thank our event sponsors, the Regional Clean Air Campaign, the North Carolina Division of Air Quality, the Western North Carolina Regional Air Quality Agency, Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition, and also a special thanks to Buncombe County Television for sharing this information with folks here in Buncombe County. They'll be putting a recording of this presentation on their website shortly, so you'll be able to find it there. Want to go over the agenda for just a second. We're going to have one slight change. Jason Walls with Duke Energy needs to get off the webinar around 10 o'clock, so we're going to move him up as our first presenter. He'll be talking about a smarter and cleaner energy future for Western North Carolina. We'll follow that up with Mike Aprazenkas, who's the director of the Division of Air Quality, and he'll be talking about state and federal air quality issues. Following Mike, Ashley Featherstone, who's the director of the Western North Carolina Regional Air Quality Agency, will be talking about air quality conditions here in Asheville and Buncombe County. They are one of 3 local air quality agencies here in North Carolina. The others are in the Charlotte and the Triad areas of North Carolina. Then Elliot Tardif, meteorologist with the Division of Air Quality, will talk about air quality forecasting and specifically how they do that here in the mountains and some changes that they've made recently on how they do those. Following Elliot, cost-effective actions to reduce energy demand and emissions by Sophie Mullinax with the Blue Horizons Project. And then I'll tell you a little bit about some efforts to reduce emissions from motor vehicles here in our region. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. After Jason makes his presentation, because he does have to leave early, we're going to open up questions for Jason following his presentation. Want to go over just a couple of housekeeping items. If you would type your question into the panel. The questions will be answered at the end of the webinar and followed up with later if we don't get time to all of them. We will be given priority to the questions from the media since we have limited time. But as I said, we will be following up on all of your questions following the event today. All of you will be kept on mute during the webinar. The webinar recording and the slide deck will be available to you following the presentation today. And if you're having technology-related issues, please put that in the chat box or email Terry Albrecht at terry@landtosky.org. That's terry@landtosky.org, and he'll try to help you get back on. And if you're having any sound issues, problems with the audio, try dialing into the call-in number that's in the invitation. And if you want to jot that number down, I can go ahead and give it to you. It is 561-247-8422. All right, at this point, we'll turn it over to Jason Walls with Duke Energy.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is always an interesting way. I actually enjoy every year being in front of this group so that we can really spend some time talking to each other. Let me make my presentation full screen real quickly. So what I want to start with today is really looking at starting broad and then working our way down to really some of those investments that are being made at a local level. But when you think about investments in a clean energy future, one of the things that the company is really committed to doing is to building a smarter electric grid for you. You know, when we think about ways to improve reliable electric service to customers, when we look at ways to strengthen the electric grid against both physical and cyber attacks, if you think about just the remnants of Hurricane Zeta that passed through our community just really yesterday, and the damage that caused, what are some investments that we can make to ensure improved reliability and a stronger and resilient electric grid? You know, and also one of the things we routinely hear from our customers is that they want more options and control over how they use electricity at their homes. And so really the fundamentals of this building a smarter energy future is really based on grid improvements that are designed to improve reliability, strengthen the grid, give customers more options and control, as well as build a grid that is ready for a massive and aggressive expansion of solar and other renewables. And so when we think about how we do that, the company each year, we file what is known as a integrated resource plan, or an IRP for short. And the IRP really talks about what are those ways that we're going to meet our customers' growing electricity needs. And this year, unlike other years, we are really looking at establishing some pathways to a cleaner energy future. In late 2019, the company made its commitment, or announced its commitment, to be net zero carbon emitting by 2050. Well, we get a lot of questions from customers and other stakeholders across the state. They were asking, well, how are you going to do it? You know, you made this goal, but now what are those ways to get there? Well, this year, the 2020 Integrated Resource Plan really outlines for us ways that we're going to be able to accomplish that goal. And so it really started, and for the first time, we set out to really get stakeholder input on the front end of our integrated resource plan. And unlike other years, we outlined multiple pathways to help the company meet a 70% by 2030 reduction in carbon, as well as that outlines aggressive targets achievable with investments in solar, wind, and energy storage. So you've got those 70% reductions by 2030, and really leveraging all those tools in the toolbox, from solar, wind, energy storage, grid investments, new technologies that we don't even know about yet, but that are being developed every day, as well as policy advancements. So when we think about those grid investments, we're thinking about ways to get more renewables to customers, more renewables onto the grid, more storage onto the grid, and other zero emitting resources. And so when we started to do that, we wanted to graphically show those various scenarios. And so those scenarios, if you look at this chart and you look at the dashed or dotted orange line there at the top at negative 50%, so those are kind of how we intend to meet a 50% reduction. And then if you look at the green dash line further down on the chart, that's the 70%. And of course, along the horizontal axis, you get the year. So if you think about 2030, in the different pathways that are available or that we modeled and to reach a 70% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030. This was all new to this year's IRP. In years past, it's generally just what generation resources are needed and at what time to meet growing customer energy demands. But this IRP was different in that we looked at multiple pathways to really drive toward those goals that are being set out both by the state of North Carolina and Duke Energy's own net zero carbon emissions goal by 2050. And so those are some of the things that we look at globally that are driving us toward a cleaner energy future. And when we think about locally, the most significant work has really happened just over the last few years. So in 2015, when the company announced its plans to retire the Asheville coal plant, which came online in 1964, we recognized that was a significant investment for this community, and so we launched into construction. And I'm happy to report that the coal plant that was scheduled to be retired is now retired and is being demolished. If anyone has had the opportunity to drive around South Asheville, or even drive around the Long Shoals Road exit on Interstate 26, you've likely noticed that the large stacks that were once a part of the horizon of our community are no longer there. You also, if you could look even beyond some of those trees, you can see other substantial removals from the, from the coal pile to some of the other supporting equipment of the plant has been demolished and is being removed. And so earlier this year, we completed the construction of a new highly efficient natural gas-fired power plant. It's about 75% more efficient than the coal plant that it replaced. And because natural gas burns cleaner than coal, it emits about 60% fewer carbon emissions per megawatt hour than the plant that it replaced, 99% reduction in sulfur dioxide, an additional 40% reduction in nitrogen oxides, and mercury emissions have been eliminated. And the other important part of this, we are cooling, or we're operating this plant using cooling towers, so the amount of water that is needed to efficiently operate the generation plant is substantially reduced. Other key investments that we're making in the region is battery storage. Hopefully you saw in the media about a month ago that we announced the commercial operation of the largest battery storage facility in North Carolina, here in South Asheville, actually in the Shiloh community, just off of Sweeten Creek Road, in between, kind of as you're getting closer to Asheville. Battery storage is a tremendous resource for us, and we've really learned a lot about that technology and how that technology can help customers, how it can help the grid, how it can serve as backup energy supply. So there are a lot of different benefits that we're able to really leverage and take advantage of with battery storage. So if you look at our kind of corporate commitment or our corporate direction, we plan to invest about $600 million in battery storage projects across 6 states. But locally, outside of the Asheville Rock Hill project, we're also looking, or we are getting ready to break ground in Hot Springs on the largest commercial scale microgrid in North Carolina, which will be solar coupled with a battery there in the town of Hot Springs, which will provide tremendous grid benefits, as well as help protect that community if the one kind of long line that serves that community ever goes out of power, as well as a project around what we call the Riverside Project, which will be just north of Asheville, as well as a large solar and storage facility at the Asheville plant once the demolition is complete of the coal plant. But under the even larger umbrella of what our corporate commitments are, our corporate goals are, and our local investments have been, it's important to reflect that there is a clean energy planning process that is happening with the state of North Carolina. Duke Energy is an active participant in that stakeholder process, really looking and seeking to find those common grounds with other stakeholders that are engaged and active participants in that work. Really looking at those ambitious goals for 70% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2050. That report is due out to the governor. A report is due to the governor later this year, and it's just a really exciting piece of work to be a part of, and our company is a willing and active participant. But when we think about the work that I'm involved with now here in the region, as well as with the company, there's really never been a more exciting time to be an employee of Duke Energy than right now. And that'll kind of end my prepared remarks and slides, and I'll turn it over to whoever I'm supposed to turn it over to facilitate a question or two.
Thank you, Jason. We have one question that's come in from Robin Barrows saying they are interested in the technology that eliminates HG emissions at the new Asheville electric plant.
That eliminate what emissions?
The HG emissions.
HG.
I think we're interested in hearing a little bit more about the electric plant.
Mercury emissions.
Mercury emissions.
About the technology that eliminates the mercury emissions from the plant? Is that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just don't understand the question.
The question is they're interested in hearing more about the technology that eliminates the mercury emissions at the Asheville plant. Could you tell us a little bit more about what's changing at the Asheville plant?
So the biggest change at the Asheville plant is the fuel source in which is emitted. So if you think about the mercury, if you think about the emissions that occur at the plant, mercury is emitted through the combustion process of coal. Well, the coal plant is no longer being operated. It's been retired, and it's been replaced by natural gas. So, you know, the most significant change is the fuel source, which is driving the operation of the generation plant.
We got one more from Jim Renfro. What's the base year that the 70% reduction of carbon emissions is based on?
So, Jim, I would have to verify, but I think it's 2005 is my understanding. But Jim, I'm happy to follow up with you. Anytime Jim Renfro asks you a question about air quality, you do get a little bit nervous because he only has a lifetime of service in air quality. But Jim, I'm happy to follow up, but I'm almost positive it's 2005.
All right, thank you, Jason. If we get any more questions for you, we'll send them your way.
Sounds great. Thanks everybody for letting me participate today.
Thanks, Jason, so much. We appreciate it. All right. We'll turn it over to Mike Apkazinkis. He's the director of the North Carolina Division of Air Quality. And Mike's been participating in this event for the last few years, and usually gets a trip to Asheville, to the mountains out of it. But sorry, Mike, you couldn't be with us today in person, but hopefully next year.
Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you today, and I want to thank you, Bill, and your group for your continued leadership and continuing this event in unprecedented times, and just really appreciate the partnership in continuing the mission of clean air in Western North Carolina. So thank you so much for the opportunity. It's good to see or hear from all of you here today. So I want to just talk a little bit about how things are going from an air quality perspective. There's lots of good news to share. And this morning, I'm going to begin with an illustration of our greatest success in improving air quality in North Carolina, where it's no more visible and noticeable than right there in Western North Carolina mountains, where visibility has drastically improved. And by the way, it's great to hear Jim Renfro is on the line and attending today, another great partner and someone who's responsible for collecting some of the data we see here on this slide right now. The improvements we've accomplished in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, as an example, are a dramatic improvement. And on this chart showing the worst visibility days in the Smokies, you see these stacked bar charts, right? And they're showing the last 19 years of light extinction from speciated PM2.5 data. That clearly indicates the ammonium sulfate fraction of the PM2.5 was the dominant contributor to light extinction and reduced visibility, but also focus on the visual range improvements. That's the black line here on this graph relative to that secondary axis on the right side of the graph shown here. You're seeing visibility and visual range improving from about 28 miles on the worst visibility days about a decade ago to just short of 50 miles today based on the latest data. So that's progress you can see, and it's great proof that our partnerships are working. These federal, state, local, and private partnerships are working. Regulatory and non-regulatory approaches are working. Well-timed market influences are helping, and the emission reductions are truly working. And in this year of celebrating the 50th anniversary of the 1970 Clean Air Act, it's truly remarkable what we've achieved together. So congratulations, and we need to keep up the great work. When we take a little closer look at some of the ambient data from Western North Carolina, and here we're looking at fine particle concentrations at a variety of monitors in Western North Carolina, you can see that we've got quite an awesome trend going over the last 20 years or so relative to the 2012 PM2.5 National Ambient Air Quality Standard, the annual standard of 12 micrograms per cubic meter. We're on average about 56% of that standard now in Western North Carolina. Just tremendous progress. So it's no surprise that we're seeing such great improvements in visibility. throughout Western North Carolina. If we transition to looking at ozone concentrations in Western North Carolina, it's a similar story. The 2015 standard, the National Ambient Air Quality Standard, is shown there, the bottom red dashed line, and we're well below those that standard at our monitoring sites in Western North Carolina. So again, tremendous news, tremendous progress there, and really took a group effort. And so this is something that we should all cherish and take pride in, because we've all helped with these improvements over the many years. So let's continue with the encouraging news with a focus on ozone concentrations in the Charlotte area. Last year around this time, we were very nervous about how close we were to potentially violating the 2015 ozone standard in the Charlotte area. We were carefully evaluating data from the 2019 ozone season, looking at cause and effect relationships that led to some of the enhanced ozone concentrations we saw in that metro area in 2019. Through last winter and early spring of 2020, we had some very productive discussions with our internal experts, with our partners at the local program and the Mecklenburg County local program, our colleagues with the state of South Carolina, and with Duke Energy, exploring some of their operational flexibilities for the 2020 ozone season to help assist in reducing emissions. Well, about the time that the 20 ozone season started, so did the pandemic. Obviously, that changed the mobile source NOx emissions profile quite drastically, perhaps. And so, needless to say, this was a unique year from a precursor emission standpoint. But no matter how you look at it, we continue to have no exceedances statewide for ozone in 2020, and we are in attainment statewide for ozone, the 2015 ozone NAAQS. And at specific Charlotte area monitors, this table simply shows that for us to even come close to violating the standard in 2021, we'd have to have some very high, fourth highest values on the order of concentrations that we haven't achieved as a fourth high in over a decade. So things are looking good. If we look specifically at the code yellow and code orange days in the Charlotte area, 2019 versus 2020, there's a huge difference here, right? We're going to be further studying this data in the months and years ahead to really try to tease out the specific contributions to the improvements, but obviously quantifying the reduced mobile source emissions will be a central part of that work. And we've already started taking a preliminary look at the data that's available. So I thought this was neat to share, that we look at some of the statewide changes in vehicle miles traveled. This is March and April data, 2019 versus 2020. So the percent change in VMT average statewide from the months of March and April 2019 through 2020. And you kind of see on a daily basis, the first week and a half or so of March, about the same as you'd expect. But then once the first executive order came out there in mid-March, things drastically changed from a vehicle miles traveled perspective across the state. So how does that manifest itself in any way in the air pollution data that we collect? And so taking a preliminary look here at mean nitrogen dioxide data in our major urban areas, at some of our roadside monitors in Charlotte and Raleigh, and a rural background site in Northampton County. 2018 data, the green bar, 2019 data, the blue bars, 2020 data, the yellow bars. You can see the mean data shows that the 2020 data, at least year to date through September 30th, is all lower, all right? Probably something you would expect based on what we just looked at with the VMT metric. So let's cut the nitrogen dioxide data a little bit differently. Instead of the mean at those sites over the same years, let's look at the 98th percentile of the data. Again, the range of concentrations has changed, but on average, you're seeing about a 5 part per billion reduction in 2020 to date. Again, not a complete data set yet, but on average, about 5 part per billion lower in the 98th percentile in 2020 relative to the past 2 years. All right, and then let's take a little closer look at this site, and this is our roadside site in Research Triangle Park near Raleigh, where the average concentrations in 2020, so this is still nitrogen dioxide data, roadside, near sources, mobile sources, obviously, and one of the busiest stretches of roadway in North Carolina. The average traffic counts along this stretch of roadway for the 6-month period ending September 30th is down an average of 26.8% from the same period in 2019. So if you focus in on the red bars, that's the 2020 data at this site. The left set of bars on the left side of the slide here, it's the average NO2 data, and you're seeing quite a drastic drop in the 2020 data, especially early in the pandemic months. If you look at the maximums, over on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see that they were also lower. So if you look at the mean, the average, the maximums, the minimums, they all show lower in 2020. And, when considering this data, one can start putting together the pieces, right, on making some conclusions. However, I'm going to caveat all of this by saying that it's preliminary. It's a preliminary examination of pre-quality assured data, and further detailed analysis is going to be necessary to fully support any conclusions, but at least it provides some data that supports what we've all been presuming, and that is a reduction in vehicle traffic leading to improved air quality. All right, so we've just illustrated that there's been some impact to air quality from the pandemic, and there's a lot of further work to be done there. But let's talk a little bit about how our agency has been operating. And I'm really glad to report that we're operating very effectively with most staff teleworking. That's been true since mid to late March. And we've been very fortunate to have a lot of the business communication platforms and productivity tools in place, from Microsoft Teams to SharePoint to WebEx video conference platforms, very much like the one that we're using here today. All of these have been in use since day one of the pandemic for us. And so that enabled a very smooth transition to teleworking for our staff statewide. I'd say one of the biggest challenges is really related to hardware. We allowed our employees to take their computers from the office, their desktop computers, home to do work from home. Not all of those desktop setups came with all the peripherals like webcams and microphones. They're not part of our standard desktop configuration, but and so a lot of those staff, they can certainly do their job from home with their computer, but they're not able to fully take advantage of these great and powerful tools that we have, these productivity tools. So in the future, we're going to be looking for additional finances to shift to laptops with cameras and microphones for all of our staff. So workload has remained high through the pandemic for us. I can't remember a busier time, and it's not related to the pandemic necessarily. It's just a very busy time for us. But across our division, our ambient monitoring program's operating normally. Our labs are open. We've submitted all the required plans to EPA. We've upgraded our data stream to where we're now submitting data from the field to EPA's Air Now site more quickly. And so people are getting near real-time data with less of a time lag. That's great. Our outreach program has pivoted to a web-based training and classroom outreach. From a compliance perspective, our division has been performing a mix of partial or virtual compliance evaluations, and at sites where appropriate social distancing can be achieved, we're doing full compliance evaluations as well. Our permitting productivity metrics are up since teleworking started, and if you take a look at some of that data, 2019 data shown here with the green bars, 2020 data shown with the blue bars, and I've kind of highlighted the last 6 months of information where we're looking at Title V permit final actions. Almost month over month, we're more productive with a similar staffing level in 2020 in a telework mode than we were in the office in 2019. So this will help inform future business strategies and future possibly expanded telework options for our employees. But this is a great metric. We want to keep tracking these types of productivity metrics across our division. And then, as you know, the public participation process is a critical piece to our rulemaking and permitting programs. Thus, the pandemic has had presented a pretty big challenge to both our division and our department and how we're conducting this business. A shift to virtual hearings and public meetings has been very successful, and we continue to improve our use of these digital platforms for those purposes. But a remaining challenge is that the public doesn't necessarily have the technology or great internet connections in rural areas. And so recognizing this, the division has been expanding the ways that folks can participate in these public processes. We've added phone lines to the public to call in to public hearings and public meetings and provide a comment that way. We've also established and advertised phone lines attached to voicemail boxes where folks can provide their comments to particular matters of interest that way. And this is all above and beyond the traditional means of commenting via letters and emails. And so one of the key questions for the future will be, do we need to provide these alternative digital pathways post-pandemic? And so that's something we'll be looking at moving forward. All right, next. There we go. Next, I want to touch on some of our work related to monitoring and measuring emerging compounds in ambient air. And the particular emerging compounds I'm referring to are per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS compounds. It's a class of man-made chemicals used for multiple purposes. They're made up of chains of carbon atoms surrounded by fluorine atoms, and they produce a very stable carbon-fluorine bond. And we're learning over time that some of these compounds are persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic to humans if ingested. So some of these compounds can be emitted from an air emission source during production, and we're learning more every day about their use and how they behave in the environment if they get into the environment, and other potential sources. There's very little information available regarding the inhalation risks associated with most of these compounds, but as I noted a moment ago, there's concern about ingestion through drinking water. And so this is most certainly a multimedia issue within DEQ, and we at the Division of Air Quality are working very closely with our colleagues in the Division of Water Resources and the Division of Waste Management that are charged with protecting the state's surface and groundwaters, respectively. So in sharing with you today what we've been doing in the Division of Air Quality the last couple of years, we established a network of monitoring sites at or near each of our 7 regional offices to measure deposition, atmospheric deposition of this class of emerging compounds, the PFAS compounds. We started doing these measurements at some sites in 2018. We pretty much got all of the sites online in 2019. And so this tile plot is one really quick way for us to share whether PFAS was detected in this atmospheric deposition measurement or not. So the green blocks were non-detect. The yellow blocks, we detected some PFAS in the sample. And so what you're seeing here, 2018, 2019, and the next slide shows you the 2020 data are mostly non-detects. No detections have occurred at our Asheville site at the Asheville Regional Office. But in these few cases where we have detected PFAS in the wet or dry deposition measurements, it's usually a very low level concentration in the single-digit part per trillion, and it's usually some of the 8 carbon legacy compounds like PFOS, that's perfluorooctane sulfonic acid, which was a key ingredient many years ago in certain stain repellents. So we're still investigating, kind of the cause and effect relationship. These are week-long samples, so it's really difficult to do in-depth source attribution analysis. But what it's informing us is that there's very little background contributions from atmospheric deposition to any PFAS we might find in surface water bodies or groundwater bodies in North Carolina. All right, and then in wrapping up this morning, I just want to provide a quick update on the beneficial NOx reduction projects we announced will be awarded with phase 1 of the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust funds allocated to North Carolina. This table shows you the number of vehicles or charging stations that are funded in broad categories, and then the pie chart is showing you the percent of the total funding per category. We're extremely excited about the projects that we've announced as being awarded. We're going to be working on contracts to move these along over the coming months, and once implemented, all of these projects are going to result in about 27 to 28 tons of NOx reduced annually. So we're super excited about moving forward on this, and before you know it, we'll be moving on to the next phase where we'll do this all over again at some point in 2021. So we're looking forward to that, and we really appreciate all of the collaborations and the partnerships from folks like Bill and Land of Sky and the Clean Cities coalitions across the state. And we've just had a lot of great support and a lot of great partnerships, and we're looking to do a lot more good with the money, the additional money that is yet to be distributed. So looking forward to that. And with that, that's the end of my presentation, Bill. I look forward to the question and answer session later, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mike, so much. Really appreciate your participation in this event every year. And we also appreciated your partnership on the VW settlement. That was really important to our organization and our region and our local governments. And we look forward to phase 2 and phase 3, another $60 million. I'll be touching a little bit on that in my presentation regarding some of the entities that got money in our area. All right, at this point, we're going to turn it over to Ashley Featherstone, who's the director of the local air agency. She's going to be giving us an update on air quality issues and trends here in Asheville and Buncombe County. Ashley, while you're pulling up your slides, I also want to recognize a couple of other DAQ officials that are on the call today. Brendan Davey, who's the supervisor of the Asheville Regional Office of the Division of Air Quality, and also Keith Bamberger, who's the Education and Outreach Specialist here in the Asheville office that we've been working with for many, many years. And they'll be available to help answer some questions later as well, if there's something real specific about local conditions. I also want to thank Jim Renfro. Mike, thanks for recognizing Jim. Jim has been a wonderful partner. He's the air quality specialist with Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and one of the most informed individuals on air quality conditions probably in the country. And Jim and Bill Jackson, who's also on this call, Bill's formerly with the U.S. Forest Service here in Asheville. They were the ones that sounded the alarm about air pollution problems here in Western North Carolina in the mid-90s. And we knew very little about air quality issues at that time. But we conducted an assessment of what was going on and what we could do as a region. And that led to the creation of the Regional Clean Air Campaign, which is an education and outreach program. We were trying to educate the public and also decision makers, and hopefully that would lead to action, which it did. So Ashley, if you're ready, we'll turn it over to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Bill. Can you see my slides?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for hosting the annual Air Quality Update Press Conference. Glad to be here, and go ahead and just jump right in with my slides. Have just a brief overview of our local agency. Also have a little bit of data or updates on our monitoring data and what's new with us. So this is a question we get a lot, is what is a local air pollution control agency? We are one of the 3 local agencies here in North Carolina that is certified by the EMC to implement the air pollution regulations here in our local area. We work with the EPA and with our partners at the North Carolina DAQ to maintain this program. And we do pretty much what the regional offices do. We issue the permits and ensure compliance with the rules. We run our ambient monitors here for fine particulate and ozone. And we also implement the asbestos removal rules and the open burning rules here in our area, and try to do some education and outreach along the way, also working with our partners. So here in Western North Carolina, air pollution has been of interest for a long time. We do have some unique challenges with our topography, with the mountains and the valleys. We do get temperature inversions, and we have what we call the bowl effect. And so locally generated pollution can exacerbate the problem. So I think that's really what led to the creation of this agency. We were the City of Asheville Smoke Abatement Program from 1947 to 67. And then back in 67, a lot of the counties realized there was an issue here, and they got some money to do some air pollution monitoring that was provided by the U.S. Public Health Service. And we had a multi-county agency with 4 counties for 3 years before the predecessor agency was formed back in 1970 with Haywood County. And since 2000, we have reformed with Buncombe County in the City of Asheville. So we're a little bit different than the other 2 locals. We have what's called an interlocal agreement with more than one governing body, but we have a board with appointees from the City of Asheville and Buncombe County that have the agreement to implement this program. We also have an advisory council made up of different members of the community that help advise us on air quality matters. And here in Western North Carolina, our problems are the same throughout as they are in the Southeast, mainly concerned about ground level ozone and fine particulate matter. These pollutants can be affected by the weather and geography. And I was just going to go through a little bit of our data similar to what Mike was showing. This is just for the Buncombe County monitors, but you can see that we've had lots of good improvements from, this graph shows from 2005 up until, through the 2019, but you can see that ozone values have been decreasing over time. And the lines up above are the national standards, which get modified from time to time. Current standard is 70 showing here. We've had a lot of improvements associated with different programs, cleaner gas, nationwide, cleaner engines, obviously power plants putting on scrubbers. This is just a plot showing the air quality index, how the green, yellow, orange, and very occasional red days you can see here. Similar plot for the PM 2.5, it's also decreasing a lot. And back in 2006, as a result of the North Carolina Clean Smokestacks Act, the Asheville coal-fired power plant received the very first scrubbers here in the state. And you can see that the levels were declining since then. Also, around that same time, we had cleaner diesel fuel and cleaner engines. So there's just been a whole host of different things that have come together and resulted in the clean air improvements that we're seeing. Again, this is the AQI for the PM 2.5. And you can see that we did have some red days here in 2016 with the fires, the wildfires that we had in the area. And this is just meant to show the number of green days. We do have mostly green days, but we do have some yellow days. And in 2016, we had some orange and red days associated with those fires. And we actually had one code orange ozone day back in 2016. Have not had any code orange ozone days this year for this monitoring season. This is the PM 2.5 in ozone for 2019. So again, mostly green days with some yellow. Not really going to go over the air quality index information since Elliot's going to be covering that for us in more detail. There have been some changes with county level forecasting that's been really helpful. This is the code. Just want to encourage everybody to be familiar with it. And just wanted to touch briefly on what's new with us. And we're very excited about the Duke Energy Progress Modernization Project. They shut down the coal-fired boilers this year, and they've been replaced with new natural gas, fuel oil-fired combined cycle equipment. So we're going to see even more reductions in pollution. Also new this year with the COVID-19, like Mike was saying, we've had modified operations associated with that, very similar. We were fortunate that we had laptops already, so when we sent most of our staff home to telework, we were well equipped and using a lot of those, the same tools that he referred to, which have really helped out. And we've continued to be effective running our monitoring programs. We are able to respond to complaints with social distancing procedures, and we have resumed doing our compliance inspections of the permitted facilities with modified procedures to minimize any time indoors and use virtual tools and things of that nature. So all in all, it's going very well. It's just different, and appreciate everybody for pitching in. We have a great team, and I'm very proud of them, and fortunate to be working with them, and appreciate all their efforts. And the other thing that's happened with us is we have had a bit of a reorganization of our agency here in the last year. Our former director, David Brigman, retired with 29 years of service, so very appreciative of him. And again, the team here has all picked up extra duties as we've worked to fill our vacant positions. So really appreciate that. One other thing I was going to mention as far as what's new, we get a lot of questions from citizens about wood stoves. A lot of people use wood stoves here in Western North Carolina, and we do try to encourage using the cleanest wood stoves possible because, again, with our topography, we get calls from citizens who are concerned because their neighbor has a wood stove, and sometimes the smoke is an issue. So there are new standards that have come out in 2015, and if you're in the market for a wood stove and looking to get a new one, we encourage people to look and make sure that they're getting one that is meeting the most current standards, because those have less particulate matter emissions. Also, the sulfur dioxide standard, we've had a sulfur dioxide monitor sited near the Duke Energy plant for the last 3 years, and I've got some data here on that. The standard is the 75 parts per billion, and our 3 years worth of data show that we were at 11.5, so well in compliance, and that was while Duke was burning coal. So they have received permission to shut down that monitor, and now they're not burning coal anymore. So EPA is currently proposing to designate our area as attainment unclassifiable for that standard. And finally, I just wanted to highlight some voluntary initiatives. We have a Clean Air Excellence Award program that we've been doing for the last several years, had some help from our Citizens Advisory Committee on this, and every year in the beginning of the year, we put out requests for nominations for companies that are implementing voluntary initiatives. Mostly, it's a lot of energy efficiency upgrades and fleet projects that reduce emissions of greenhouse gases and of criteria air pollutants. So we like to try to give special recognition and highlight these efforts. So this year, our board is going to be giving an award to Eaton Corporation Arden Plant. They're a manufacturer of power management products like low voltage switchgear, medium voltage drives, automatic transfer switches here in Arden, and they have an air permit with our facility. So we're going to be presenting an award in a different format since our board is meeting virtually, but just wanted to highlight their efforts and recognize them for their good work, and try to get the word out about those types of efforts. So please keep that in mind. If you know any companies that are implementing some of these initiatives, that is something that we do every year, and we like to try to get some press for them and spread the word about these initiatives. And that's all that I have for now. So does anybody have any questions, or are we taking those later?
I'm going to take those later.
Okay.
Thank you, Ashley, so much. And thanks for all you do to address air quality issues here in the Asheville, Buncombe County area. We're really fortunate to have a local agency here. You do great work, so thank you. All right.
Thanks a lot, Bill. We appreciate all the partners.
Next, we're going to hear from Elliot Tardif. He's a meteorologist with the Division of Air Quality in Raleigh. And many of you get the air quality forecast in your inbox every day at 3 o'clock, and showing the air quality conditions that are predicted for the following day. So he's going to tell us a little bit about that program, how it works, and talk about some specific changes in how they're doing the forecasts statewide, and especially here in Western North Carolina. So Elliot, if you're ready, we'll turn it over to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you for the introduction and for the opportunity to be a part of today's events. Thank you for everyone for being here. So my name is Elliot Tardif. I'm a meteorologist with the Division of Air Quality, and one of my responsibilities is one of my and my fellow colleagues, meteorologist colleagues' responsibilities is issuing the air quality forecast daily for North Carolina. And I wanted to share with you today some updates that we've made to our forecast process, specifically moving to a county-based level of forecasting geographically. As you all may recall, prior to this year, the air quality forecast was issued for multi-county forecast regions across the state that spanned anywhere from the mountains all the way out to across the Piedmont out to the interior coastal plain of Greater Rocky Mount, and the Triad area handled by our colleagues at the Forsyth County Office of Environmental Assistance and Protection. But the genesis for the idea of county-based forecasting really came about, and it's fitting that I'm talking about updating this, how this update came to be in this forum, because it occurred right here in Western North Carolina with the many wildfires that occurred across the mountains in the fall of 2016. In addition to the tragic loss of property and life, it represented a significant air quality forecast challenge for us, because the way our technology was working at the time, we could issue additional supplemental forecasts for counties that were outside of forecast regions. And if you look at this image and the forecast in the bottom right of this image, you can see some of those supplemental counties that we were issuing forecasts for to address air quality concerns from the fine particulate concentrations from the smoke from these wildfires that was blowing downwind. But a limitation that we were running into at the time was that we couldn't issue different forecasts for different counties within a given forecast region. And as you can see in the case of the greater Asheville forecast region, it encompassed a fair number of counties. And the severity of fine particulate concentrations from wildfire smoke can be very localized, especially when you have terrain effects and things of that nature at play. And we don't issue forecasts in like a broad brush manner, like taking an average across all of a given area. We forecast for what we think the worst air quality will be at any place within a geographic area in question. And so if we thought in this case, like if there was a bad fire out by like say Swain or Jackson County, which I think was occurring on this particular day, then if we thought there was going to be code red conditions for those areas, then we would issue a code red for the entire region, even if other counties within that region weren't seeing air quality effects as severe from wildfire smoke. You know, as an example, if it was code orange or even code yellow conditions, as opposed to the main counties in question. So that was kind of the genesis of the discussion internally, that we need to make a change to our forecast process, and we need to find a way to improve the precision of our forecasts, to tell the people that need to hear that air quality is going to be a concern for them, that it will be, but then also for the people where we think it won't be, that it won't be for them as well. So in addition to the fires, we've also come to learn as well, as we've gone through time and precursor emissions for ozone have decreased, that ozone concentrations, elevated ozone concentrations, are becoming increasingly localized. And so that was another motivation from another angle to inform the change to our forecast process. So we had been working on that internally with our IT group, and there was a lot of collaboration going back and forth with them here over recent years. And so at the end of the 2019 ozone season, we did a soft rollout of the county-based forecast system. We learned some things over the winter of 2019 to 2020, and we're able to implement some of those in 2020. And even then, this is an ongoing process, and we're learning things, and you know, we're hearing comments and feedback, and incorporating those as we go forward. So what does the new process look like? So as you can see, every single county now in North Carolina has an air quality forecast, and that was also another motivation of this effort, is that we were hearing from citizens that didn't live in a forecast region that said, well, where's our forecast? And so we heard them, and we said we can expand the scope of our forecast to include them as well. So we did that. The Triad area is still under the responsibility of our colleagues and counterparts at the Forsyth County Office of Environmental Assistance and Protection. But the remaining counties and areas are covered by us at the division. So in addition to breaking out each forecast or the forecast by each county, we've also split up our ridgetop regions into two different areas, the North Ridges and the South Ridges. The North Ridges are basically everywhere from greater Mount Mitchell and points north towards Ashe and Watauga counties. The South Ridges are the ridgetops across the southern part of the North Carolina mountains, and those include Frying Pan, Purchase Knob, and Joanna Bald. And so in addition to that update, we've also been updating how we present our data as well. And one of those big, a big step in that effort has been a partnership that we've entered into with our good friends at the North Carolina State Climate Office. We're doing a lot of collaboration with them around web hosting development, which is a big strength of theirs, and data presentation, which is also a big strength of theirs. And that effort, in addition to a lot of programming work that we have been doing as well, has come to bear already in a couple of products that we've created, one of which is tool that shows ozone data and attempts to predict what the ozone design values may be based on what data has already been observed. A new site for our air quality forecast models. We run some in-house forecast models daily, and that output is presented on this page. We've got a lot of work coming down the pike for the future, including a new tool for our ambient monitoring. So in addition to updating our forecasting process, updating how we're presenting our data, we're also updating how we're presenting our data via social media. So we have recently joined and updated our Twitter, the way our forecasts are disseminated on Twitter. We're now able to send out automated daily forecast tweets that, as you can see in the image on the right, presents a map of the entire state. And then from there, we provide a link that goes directly to our forecast page, and an end user can then look at what the specific air quality index number is for each county. And then we also have our discussion products there as well, in which we attempt to go into greater detail as to what our thoughts are that are informing the forecast. And we also share updates as needed on our air quality, North Carolina Air Quality Forecast Center Facebook page. So with that, I think I may have a couple of seconds here, and I'd like to show everybody the what that design value predictor tool looks like and some of the data that's presented on it. We, as an air quality agency, we submit our air quality, our ambient air quality data to a national database, and then at the end of the day, we pull that database, not only for North Carolina, but nationwide, back. And then we do a lot of internal programming work, much of that credit to my fellow meteorologist colleague, Bradley McLam. And out of that is presented a variety of very useful data. And as you can see, these are our 4th highest ozone values across North Carolina and across the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic states for this year. And we've talked about that. Ashley and Mike both have. And these are the design values thus far for this year as well. And as you can see, we're looking very good here. So with that, I will yield the floor at this time, and I'll be looking forward to answering any questions later. Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot, so much. All right, next we're going to hear from Sophie Mullinax. She's the project manager with the Blue Horizons project based here in Asheville. And she's going to share with us what are some cost-effective actions to reduce emissions through energy conservation, energy efficiency measures. And I've been real impressed with the work that you all are doing with the Blue Horizons project. So Sophie, we look forward to hearing all about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and thanks so much for having me. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Blue Horizons project. It was launched in February 2018 and in collaboration with the City of Asheville, Buncombe County, and Duke Energy. And it's a community campaign designed to enlist public support and provide easy access to resources that are designed to help everyone in Buncombe County be more energy efficient and adopt more renewable energy. Our community is more resilient and our environment is cleaner when we all have safe, energy efficient buildings to live and work in. So we all know that Asheville is unique. We have a thriving art scene, outdoor industry, and our mountains here attract a lot of tourists. We love living here, of course, but we're also unique in another way, the way we experience peak energy demand. And peak energy demand can be equated to sort of a rush hour on the grid. So the rest of the Southeast, such as cities like Atlanta, Charleston, Charlotte, all experience their peak demand in the summertime when AC is cranking on hot summer afternoons. But here in the mountains of Western North Carolina, because of our climate, we experience a winter peak. So that means on the coldest winter mornings, When folks are getting ready for work and school and warming up their homes, taking hot showers, cooking, we experience a significant extreme spike in energy in a very concentrated time frame. So we're warming up our homes and getting ready for work and school right when it's the coldest outside. And the same goes for businesses, schools, and office buildings that are warming up and getting ready for the day of operations. And an important note about peak energy demand, the North Carolina Utilities Commission mandates that Duke Energy Progress, our utility here in Western North Carolina, must meet that energy demand. So they must be able to cover more than that peak demand. So focusing on peak demand has been a real focus for us, because we know that if we can reduce our peak demand, it reduces our overall demand, and it reduces the amount of energy that needs to be produced. So digging a little bit deeper into peak demand, briefly, this chart is a little bit, got a lot going on the screen here, but hopefully you can see that there are vertical gray bars. Those correspond to winter months. And in the bottom third of this graph, there's a blue line that shows residential energy use. So we know, based on this graph, and this is data from Duke Energy Progress, that residential energy use is a significant driver of winter peak demand. So a lot of our campaign has been focusing on what can residents do to mitigate peak demand and reduce their energy use, as well as businesses. And then briefly, greenhouse gas emissions by sector. Why is it so important for us to focus on electricity, and particularly heating, given our cold region? Well, it's because 30% of greenhouse gas emissions come from that. So this was actually surprising to me when I started this work. I didn't realize it was quite so high, but you know, heating and cooling, our buildings that we work and live in, release a significant portion of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. And this is a little look into how the average Southeast home uses energy. So some people may think that, oh, their TV or their dryer or their oven uses the most electricity. Actually, it's heating your home. This uses nearly a third, or the lion's share, of the energy that you use on an annual basis. So what can we all do about this? For your home, there are several programs available. Some are free, some can cost a little bit of money, but primarily they're all easy entry type programs. So one that specifically reduces peak energy demand, which I think is the #1 important thing to participate in, is Duke's Energy Wise Home program. So what this does, it's a free program that if you participate, you can get bill credits every year, which is nice. Everybody loves a bill credit. But what it does is that it'll cycle your heater, electric heat, and your electric hot water heater and your AC off and on during times of peak demand. This should not, and does not, in my experience and many people that I've talked to, cause any decrease in comfort, or most people don't even notice that this is happening. And also, it's important to note that these peak demand events only happen about 6 to 10 days a year. So 6 to 10 days a year, this program will cycle your heating equipment, your hot water equipment, and your AC in the summertime. Very rarely, actually, it's used in the summer, but in the winter, this will only happen about 6 to 10 days a year, only for a few hours a day. So it's really a minimal impact on you, and you get a bill credit for participating. And this also helps Duke Energy, because they need to be able to predict the demand on the grid. And when peak demand is happening, when it's 20 degrees out in February in the morning and everyone's getting ready for work and school, that demand can be unpredictable, because it is such a huge spike based on or compared to normal energy use throughout the day. Duke Energy also has a free in-home energy assessment program called Duke Home Energy House Call. So a contractor will come to your home, they'll do a walkthrough with you, inspect your windows, your insulation, how air sealed your home is. They'll leave you with a home energy kit that includes some free LED light bulbs, free water saving devices, some weather stripping, some other goodies like that. And they'll also talk to you about, hey, maybe your attic insulation could use a little bit of an upgrade. And fun fact, attic insulation and increasing it is one of the most cost-effective things you can do in your own home to reduce your energy use and your energy bills. But they'll also direct you to ways to save money if you wanted to embark on a project like that. For instance, there are rebates through Duke Energy to pay for part of attic insulation or air sealing your home. And then for households that can't necessarily afford some of the improvements that really make a big impact on your energy use and your comfort at home, we have a free weatherization program that we do in partnership with community action opportunities locally. And it's called Energy Savers Network. And to date, we have weatherized more than 500 homes in Buncombe County. And so this is a team of volunteers will go into a home and do a lot of the same things that the Home Energy House Call program will do. But we'll also do things like wrap your hot water heater, insulate your ducts and seal your ducts. And we found that this has been a really impactful program for the families in our community that can, least afford high energy bills. Some of the homes that we serve, maybe like an 800 square foot mobile home out in the county, they would see $200 to $300 a month energy bills in the wintertime, which is just unaffordable. And then lastly, for your home, you can make changes in your home that are free to reduce your energy use, and they'll even save you money. Adjust your thermostat, air seal, increase insulation, hang dry your laundry, lower your water heater temperature, and more. And there are 2 handouts in the handout section of this webinar where I've outlined a lot of the steps that homes can take and businesses can take. So hopefully you'll take a look at those. And then similarly for your business, if you want to make your facility more energy efficient, there are rebates that can help offset the cost of that. For example, Duke's Small Business Energy Saver program can pay up to 80% of project costs for an energy efficiency retrofit or a lighting replacement. Duke's Energy Wise Business program similarly reduces peak demand in our region, and it's a slightly different program than the home program just because of the nature of businesses and the equipment that they have, but there's also annual bill credits. You do get a free thermostat and free installation of that thermostat as well. And then Land of Sky offers free energy audits for businesses. So the Waste Reduction Partners team, they'll conduct free on-site energy assessments and then provide consulting services on how to embark on any improvements that they would recommend to businesses and public facilities throughout North Carolina. And again, these are all outlined on the handout. And then a little bit about what we're doing. So Blue Horizons project is all about promoting residential and commercial energy efficiency and adopting more renewable energy. And we do this through community engagement, partnering with community organizations, neighborhood associations, church groups, and really anybody. So during COVID, this has definitely looked a lot different. Pre-COVID, I was going to about 50 events per year just to share the message and get the word out about what we're doing, because we're trying to just increase the knowledge that our community has that, this is why our energy use is a problem. Our demand for energy demands action, and here's the action that you can take. The city and the county have both adopted 100% renewable energy resolutions by 2042. They're also investing in their existing building stock by making them more energy efficient. They're installing solar on 47 county and city properties, and that's going to be beginning to be underway, I think later this year and early next year. And they're also providing a lot of the funding for the day-to-day operations of the Blue Horizons project. And then we heard from Jason Walls earlier about Duke Energy's improvements to create a cleaner, smarter energy future, and this is an outline of some of the highlights they're doing to advance clean energy. And then all of us together, we are in partnership to help cities reach their renewable energy goals. This is just a little bit more about Energy Savers Network, the weatherization program. I do get a lot of questions about this program, but basically an income qualified person or household in Buncombe County receives free weatherization, energy efficiency upgrades, new lighting, air sealing and insulation. And we actually do diagnostics and measurement and verification on the work that we do. And we found up to a 40% reduction in air leakage in a home, which can really improve the air quality and comfort and durability for the occupants of that home. So to us, this is some of the most important work that we embark on. And with that, I will yield the rest of my time and look forward to any questions that anyone has, and feel free to contact me with any questions and take a look at those handouts. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie, so much. Appreciate it. Bear with us for just a second while we pull up my presentation. While we're pulling that up, I want to recognize some of the media representatives that are on the call today. As I said earlier, we can't accomplish our goals without the help from the media to help us get the word out to the public and to decision makers. So on the call today, I believe there are representatives from the Asheville Citizen-Times, and they will be sharing their stories with the Henderson Times News and also the Madison News Record, which are their sister organizations. We also have the Waynesville Mountaineer, the Smoky Mountain News, the Mountain Express, Smoky Mountain Times, which is in Bryson City, and they'll be sharing their stories with some of their sister papers in Franklin, Highlands, and Cashiers. We also have someone from WLOS and also the Transylvania Times. All right, I wanted to tell you all a little bit about some of the efforts that are going on here in the Asheville metropolitan area to reduce emissions from motor vehicles. First, I want to recognize some of the staff of the Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition, which is the group that's working together to reduce petroleum use, greenhouse gases, and reduce air pollutants in our region by switching to alternative fuels and advanced technology vehicles. I've been serving as the coordinator. We established the coalition back in 2004, and serving as the coordinator over that time. And also, Chris Dobbins is our fleet advisor. He's the former City of Asheville fleet manager. He was a real champion in the region through the use of various alternative fuels. He built the first natural gas fueling station in our region in downtown Asheville. And when he retired, we hired him on to assist us with this effort as fleet advisor. And I will be retiring in the next couple of months. And Sarah Nichols, a regional planner here with Land to Sky, will be taking over the Clean Air campaign in the Clean Vehicles Coalition, and she will do a wonderful job. So the Clean Vehicles Coalition is one of almost 100 coalitions around the country that have been officially designated by the U.S. Department of Energy as Clean Cities Coalitions. We received our designation in 2012, and the goal of the Clean Cities program is to work with fleets and other partners, public and private sector, to reduce petroleum use and greenhouse gas emissions throughout the transportation sector. And we'll do this primarily by promoting the use of cleaner domestic alternative fuels and advanced technology vehicles. And this is just an incredible program. It's been in place for about 25 years. And we're real proud to be a part of this program. Some of the things that, some of the services that we offer through the Clean Vehicles Coalition, we do a lot of education and outreach and training, a lot of webinars this year, previously a lot of workshops for fleets and others in our area. And regarding training, just last week, or actually earlier this week, we had a day-long training for first responders on how to respond to accidents that involve vehicles using these fuels and technologies, and that was quite successful. We conduct fleet assessments and provide technical assistance. Chris and I will go and sit down with a fleet manager or a CEO and talk about their fleet and their interests, their goals in switching to cleaner technologies and what might be a good fit for their particular fleet. And there's usually not one technology or one fuel that's good for the entire fleet because it is so diverse. So we talk about all those various alternatives and the pros and cons, and they tell us what they're interested in, and then we try to assist them with implementing projects. And we're most popular for helping them with finding state and federal grants to help them implement their project. And over the years, we've helped them obtain about $13 million. And we also like to recognize them through various means. This just shows some of the alternative fuels that are promoted by the U.S. Clean Cities program: biodiesel, electric, natural gas, propane, ethanol, and hydrogen. And we have the top 4 highlighted. Those are the ones that there's been the most interest in the Asheville metropolitan area and that we've been working on. Several years ago, Department of Energy realized they weren't going to achieve their petroleum reduction goals by just promoting these alternative fuels, so they expanded their portfolio to include some other things to reduce petroleum use and emissions, including promoting idle reduction and promoting the use of fuel-efficient vehicles like gas-electric hybrids, and also reducing vehicle miles traveled, just encouraging people to drive less through various means. This shows the accomplishments that our stakeholders in our region have been making over the number of years here as far as petroleum reduction goes. And you can see that our stakeholders have been reducing their petroleum use about 1 million gallons per year. And as far as greenhouse gas reductions, about 6,000 to 7,000 tons per year as a result of all the actions that they're taking here in our 5-county area. So this slide just shows some of the things that people can do to be more fuel efficient and to reduce their impact on the environment. Of course, walking, riding bikes, taking transit. As far as bikes go, as you've noticed, the electric bikes and scooters have been extremely popular, really growing that market. People can live close to work and school, they can telecommute, and I highlighted that they can not only work from home, but also in the outdoors here in beautiful Western North Carolina. You take your laptop out on the Blue Ridge Parkway and do your business. Van pooling, carpooling, combining errands, green driving by reducing your speed, reducing your idling, and like I said, purchasing fuel efficient and low emission vehicles. And a wonderful website that everybody should be familiar with is the fueleconomy.gov that Oak Ridge National Lab here locally develops and maintains. It's a great way to compare the efficiency of various vehicles side by side. So I'm not gonna go through all the detail on these slides, but just give you a brief update on where things stand regarding the use of these various alternative fuels. So as far as biodiesel goes, it's a wonderful fuel. We get some great greenhouse gas reductions through the use of biodiesel blends. And what's great about it is it can be used in any diesel vehicle without any modification. There's no cost to switch to biodiesel. Of course, the fuel itself can be a little bit more expensive than petroleum diesel, but it is a real cost-effective way for communities to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. You can just see some of the entities in the area that are currently using biodiesel. The Cherokee Boys Club is actually making their own biodiesel using waste grease from Harris Casino. And the Biltmore State's been making their own biodiesel for some time and using it in their fleet. We've lost many of the commercial pumps at stations across our area. But biodiesel use in fleets has been really steady. And we're lucky to have Blue Ridge Biofuels here locally producing the fuel for us. Propane autogas, another really popular alternative fuel, one of the most widely used worldwide. You see some of the entities there that have been using propane. And more recently, the Carl Sandburg home switched some of their vehicles and their mowers to propane, and just in the last year, Warren Wilson College and MD Haynes. As far as compressed natural gas, not a lot of movement, adoption of natural gas vehicles in the last year, but we do have an excellent infrastructure, fueling infrastructure here in the area. We've got probably some of the best fueling infrastructure of any metro area in the country, especially considering our population. Of course, a lot of interest in plug-in electric vehicles and the use of electric vehicles. You can see from the chart there has been increasing tremendously. Still a relatively small percentage of vehicles, but is growing rapidly. As far as deployment of electric vehicles, there are a number of policies in place that are encouraging the move towards electric transportation. Here in North Carolina, the governor's Executive Order 80, issued about 2 years ago, calls for the creation of a clean energy plan that has been developed, and also calls for having 80,000 zero-emission vehicles in North Carolina by 2025. It also called for the creation of a zero-emission vehicles plan that the NCDOT completed last year, and they're working on strategies now to implement that. And North Carolina just joined with California and some states in the Northeast through an MOU to encourage the development of medium and heavy-duty electric vehicles. And Asheville and Buncombe County also have some pretty extensive goals to encourage the movement towards clean energy, renewable energy, and the use of electric vehicles. We've got about 900 electric vehicles in the Asheville region and about 15,000 statewide. This is just an update on how many charging stations we have. We have about 94 locations across the area, and that have about 246 charging outlets or ports. We have about 11 of the fast chargers in the area. About a year ago, Electrify America installed a number of fast chargers at the Sam's Club here in town. We've got several new level 2 chargers going in. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some funding grant opportunities for charging stations. Specifically, the Volkswagen settlement that Mike mentioned earlier. North Carolina's got $92 million to spend as a result of this settlement. And the goal is to reduce emissions from older diesel vehicles and equipment. And so grants are available to help fleets convert their older diesel vehicles in the medium and heavy duty area. And that includes local freight trucks, like refuse trucks, transit vehicles, shuttle buses, and school buses. And also in the settlement, there's a chunk of the funding that's being put towards funding both level 2 charging stations and DC fast chargers. As Mike mentioned, the Phase 1 awards were announced last July. I just wanted to mention a few of the entities in our area that did receive some funding. As far as trucks go, the North Carolina Arboretum got a grant to purchase a natural gas dump truck. In Mars Hill, Black Mountain, and Spindale, several other communities got money to purchase some new clean diesel, much cleaner diesel trucks. As far as school buses go, many of the counties in our area got funding for new clean diesel buses. And then there's funding for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians and Transylvania County Schools for electric buses. And these will be part of the first electric buses to be deployed here in North Carolina. So we're real excited about that. UNCA got some money for a propane shuttle bus, and Henderson County, Haywood Electric membership, and City of Morganton got money for DC fast chargers. Mike probably mentioned that the level 2 charger request for proposal will be out very soon, and the state next year will be working on their plan for how to spend the next $60 million through phases 2 and 3, which might be combined. So that's a quick overview. Here's our contact information. Encourage you all, if you're interested in learning more about clean transportation options, to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help. All right, we'll turn it over to Sarah for question and answer session. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. We've had a few come in. If the panelists want to go ahead and turn on their cameras so we can see who we're talking to, I invite you to do so if you're ready for that. Our first question, and we'll try to keep this and wrap this in just a few minutes, but our first question is for Sophie. Given the peak demand occurs on cold winter mornings as people get ready for work, what impact is COVID-19 and the fact that people are staying home all day expected to have on peak demand this winter, and how does that decrease in energy demand at office buildings?
Yeah, I think we're seeing across the board that energy use is more stable. I don't know about you, but working from home for 7 months has definitely made my energy bills higher. And I actually track my energy use, and I can see that I still do have a peak in the morning. Maybe it's from cooking, but we haven't had winter yet, so I think it's fascinating and it remains to be seen. But certainly we'll be seeing a reduction in some of the buildings and offices that are not in use right now. But of course, factories and other organizations and businesses that keep our community running are still operating, you know, essential workers and that type of thing. So really good question.
And I think this one is a good one for some of our state staff on the call. What kinds of progress has been made towards the governor's Executive 80 order?
Thanks, Sarah. I'll start that one off, but you know, Bill just touched on some of that. You know, he alluded to some of the work, the plans have been done and developed by DOT. The Zero Emission Vehicle Plan is a big one. The DEQ's Clean Energy Plan, which was referenced earlier in Jason's presentation, is a good one, and the continued collaborative work that's going on there. Those are really two of the main centerpieces, and then all the work across state government to reduce energy consumption per square foot in state-owned buildings. It is a big push, and just continuing to work on risk and resiliency actions too, and adaptation measures. There was a big document produced by our team at DEQ over the past couple months on that. So, and I shouldn't forget that there's also a great science document that's been released and done in a collaborative effort with universities across North Carolina to really outline and kind of provide that baseline of what's our climate doing currently, and what do the future projections look like, and what outcomes are most likely. So there's a lot of great information that's been produced under the umbrella of EO80.
Thank you, and we'll try to get that and send that out as a follow-up to the attendees on this call. We'll take one more question and then we'll wrap this up. This one is another one for Sophie. If a homeowner could do one thing to save energy in their home, what would you suggest they do first?
Oh, that's so hard. I did mention that attic insulation is one of the most cost-effective things that you can do. You know, R38 insulation is what's building code right now, but if you can go at all above that, or if you have an older home and you don't have sufficient attic insulation, I would say that's the most cost-effective thing to do. Other than that, look at your behavior. Are you keeping your thermostat at 75 all the time in the winter? Can you be more comfortable at a lower temperature? Same in the winter, in the summertime. Can you reduce the AC that you're using? You know, I think mindfulness about your habits and what you're doing in your home is a really important first step.
Thank you. I said that was my last one, but I had a good one come in from Karen Chavez. This is for Mike. Can you explain the black bar on the Smokies graph, and what would you say the air in Western North Carolina is historically cleaner or cleanest since the Air Quality Act and Clean Smokestacks Act?
All right, thank you for the questions, Karen. So I think the first part was in reference to the black line on one of my first slides, where we were showing that black line on that chart shows the visual range improvements, and so that's relative to the axis that was on the right-hand side of that graphic image. And what it showed was that visual range on the worst visibility days in the Smokies has improved over the last 10 years from about 28 miles on those worst visibility days, now close to 50 miles on those worst visibility days. So that's change that you can notice. That's a noticeable difference on those worst visibility days that usually occur during the summer. So that was the black line on that particular graphic. And then, Sarah, was there a second part of the question? The audio broke up for that part.
Sure. Would you say that the air in Western North Carolina is historically cleaner, or is the air cleanest since the Air Quality Act and Clean Smokestacks Act?
Oh, without doubt, we're seeing the best air quality that we have ever measured in the history of our program. And so this is the 51st year of our program at the state level, the Division of Air Quality. We celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. I mentioned it's the 50th anniversary of the 1970 Clean Air Act, and without doubt, you know, we are seeing the lowest ambient air pollution levels that have been recorded since the inception of our program. And that, again, that's wonderful news, testament to all of our good work, advancements in technology, the regulatory, non-regulatory measures. You know, so North Carolinians are definitely breathing the cleanest air that they have in anytime during their lifetimes.
All right, with that, I'd give it back to you, Bill, for a wrap up.
All righty. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, Mike. I just want to thank all of our presenters today. Great job. I really appreciate you taking the time to help share this information with the public and our decision makers. I want to thank everybody that is on the call today for participating, and of course, want to thank our sponsors again. The Division of Air Quality, Local Air Agency, and the Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition. I want to give a special thanks to Terry Albrecht with the Waste Reduction Partners Program here at Land to Sky for helping us providing technical assistance with this webinar today. Good job, Terry. So what we learned today is that if we do all work together and get really focused on something, that we can be very successful. We've really got a tremendous environmental success story here in Western North Carolina across the state. A lot of effort has gone into addressing air pollution over the last 20 years, and it's been quite successful. So good work to everyone. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here today, and have a great weekend and a spooky Halloween. Thanks for being here.